If you're currently struggling to make your Facebook ads work, this video is for you because I'm going to reveal the 3 secrets that enabled me to spend over 20 million over the last 3 years and are enabling me now to spend between 1.5 to 2 million a month on paid ads. All of these things that I'm going to share are derived from my experience of running my own e-commerce brands. Now the biggest brand is over 700K per month. We just started a year ago. But from helping other e-commerce brand founders to scale from 40K per month to $1 million a month within just a year, or crazy case studies like scaling from 27K to almost 900K in 30 days, right? So let's jump right in. Very first step, take full ownership of your acquisition. And this is something I think just doesn't, people don't talk about this enough, in my opinion. Because I'm going to tell you a story. Just 2 days ago, I had a call with a brand founder. She wants to join our, let's say, my consulting, my mentorship. And we were just talking, and the first thing I asked is, what did you try so far, right? What did you do to get to this point? Like, did you work with any agencies or consultants or whatever? And what I hear in 80% of the time is that people have worked with agencies, right? And while this might seem like the right move to do, right? So you're not really skilled in that, right? Most of the founders, they have a product background, right? And they're actually more busy like developing the product, taking care of the community, and just the customers, which is great. And then it makes sense on the first view that you would just give this to experts, right? But I hear crazy stories, like for example, in that case, like she was like the results were awful, number one. Then she was asking them, like the agency, hey, can you explain me the strategy that you're doing? Like, what's the strategy? Like, what's the goal? Because what they did was literally just producing like hundreds of creatives and pushing them all into Facebook or Meta, right? And then just seeing what sticks, right? Because if you throw like 50 or 100 creatives in there, you will have maybe 2, 3 being the winners, and then you go from there. But this is the most inefficient way to make your Facebook ads work, right? This just shows me somebody has no idea and has no idea on how to identify what are the right angles, like who is my target audience, who do I really speak to my target audience so that it resonates, right? And my creatives get shown to the right people. And at the same time, it's just lazy, number one. And second thing, it's super inefficient because you have to pay for all of this content, all of this production. Obviously, that's great for the agency, right? Because they're going to be paid for their services. But what's the outcome for the business owner? And this is why I say, like, ownership has to do with responsibility, right? And accountability, right? So the brands that I see scaling are the ones that take full ownership of their acquisition, and they're not outsourcing it to anybody else. The problem with agencies most of the times is that, and this is not necessarily the problem of the agencies, but it's just like that, is that their goals are not aligned with your goals, right? So their incentives, the incentives are not aligned. And this is what happens most of the times when I hear, for example, also in that case, like they had, I don't know, like a base fee of, let's say 5K per month, okay? And then they had something like, either it's like a rev share or it is like a ad spend share, okay? I mean, ad spend share is the worst, right? This is crazy. But you have to understand, like, what are they incentivized to do? they're incentivized here. In theory, they're incentivized to increase the revenue, but there's not like you can increase the revenue pretty easily. You can just overspend on ads. What if you have like in your brand, which I hope you have, if it's an e-commerce or no e-commerce, you basically have Meta, okay, as a channel, but you also have other channels, right? So you have organic, for example, you have email, you have, I don't know, influencers, for example. And now they're taking credit for like this year. They're taking credit for all of your revenue. Like this is crazy, right? And what's the impact of their ads on your overall revenue? Hard to say. Then let's say the better version of that is that you say, no, of course, it's just on the Facebook revenue. But then you're relying on attribution. And believe it or not, there are some agencies that are really like, they're literally faking this, right? They're faking the attribution so that they make you pay more on the retainer. Next thing, ad spend. Like, why would I incentivize somebody to spend more money, right? So the more money they spend, the more money you give them. That's the wrong incentive. And that's the biggest issue with agencies. Now, obviously, I get it. You might know some of the, let's say, stories of agencies where brands, hired an agency and they scaled them through the roof, okay? This might be true. I'm not saying it's true. It's always like that, right? There are good agencies out there. I know a couple of them, but they're very, very few, right? And so definitely make sure to take full ownership, because it's not as easy as just giving it to another agency. Like the owner that I talked to, she was basically, she ran through 8 different paid ads agencies, right? And no agency made it work, right? And they fired them after 3 months. So this is not what you want to do, because you're losing a lot of time and you're losing a lot of money. And that's why the first thing that I also teach founders is really to take full ownership, right? And not give this to somebody else. Because what you need for full ownership is you need to understand like what are the main KPIs? What are the things that we optimize, right? How do we speak to my perfect target audience, right? Who is my dream customer? Like all of these things are essential. And that's where most of the agencies struggle, because they just try to fit you into like a pre-made system, but they're not customizing it to you. Then the last thing on that topic, you always have to think an agency can only work when they have multiple clients that pay them retainers every single month. Now, the question that you have to ask yourself is, which number am I in my agency? Do I get like the full attention so that I get people that are fully committed to my brand and are trying to make my brand work? Or am I number 4 or number 5, or depending if a bigger client joins, then you would get you get pushed down basically, and that's the problem. Then you have issues that you're not happy with them because they're not prioritizing you. At the same time, from their point of view, it doesn't make sense to prioritize you. So what I say, like to keep things short here, take full ownership. And those are the brands that I see scale like crazy. Very, very last thing, if your goal is, and it should be, especially if you're an e-commerce owner, is to scale to $1 million a month, right? Then you have to think, how much would you pay an agency to get you there? Okay? Most likely, let's say if it's, I know some cases where we've got to $1 million a month. I help the founders, the team to get to $1 million a month without an agency, just by themselves. And here you're spending, let's say, around 300 to 400K, per month. Okay, depends. Depends on the brand, obviously, margins, so on and so forth. But this means with a regular agency deal, you can be paying anywhere from 25 to 40K per month in retainer, right? If they're handling everything. So you have to think like that's a steep price. And the problem with that is that it's a complete black box for you. You're fully dependent on the agency. Whatever they say is true. And you have no idea what they're actually really doing. So even if it's working, before we talked about the case when it's not working, now we talk about the case if it's working. Then the question is this worth it, right? Is it worth it to be fully dependent on an external organization? What's the real business value of your business if you don't know exactly what's happening there and how you could potentially do this by yourself while cutting this from your profit margin? And that's why I say the first thing, if you want to make ads work, you have to take full ownership. That's the way to do it. This is how the big guys are doing it. Look at like most of the 8-figure brands, and even 9-figure brands, they have their in-house team, right? They might use agencies here and there just to get like a fresh breath of creatives, for example, or just to get like a second thought, or run their creatives, the external creatives, against their own creatives and learn from that. But this is how you increase your ultimate business value, and this is how you make paid ads work on scale, okay? So very first thing, take full ownership. Second thing is simplify as much as possible. So this is the next thing, and I always tell this story. I mean, I have many versions of that story, but essentially, like a lot of founders, in my case, e-commerce founders, but in general, when they're trying to run paid ads, for example, also like especially Facebook ads, they're just overcomplicating stuff. And this is this notion that is floating around that it's super technical, it's complicated, and you have to be like an engineer to understand what's going on and with the Facebook algorithm, blah blah. This, like, you have to understand principles, but you don't have to overcomplicate things. Like one example that I always bring is you don't have to be an engineer to be able to drive a car. And it's the same thing with this. You don't have to fully understand how the algorithm is working, right? All the details of the ad platform, all the details of the ads manager. This is just not true. You don't have to understand all of these things in order to make it work for your business, and literally work for your business, because that's what we want these channels to do. The acquisition has to bring us the right customers at the right price so that we can continuously scale our business. Okay? So the simplification is really something that I constantly have to remind myself of, and also constantly have to remind my mentees of, basically, so that they don't get distracted, right? So, and simplification has a couple of different ways to manifest, let's say. So number one is, for example, the ad account structure, okay? Very simple. Ad account structure. There are a lot of YouTube videos out there on how to set up the campaigns, yada yada yada. I'm not a big fan of that. That's why you don't see a lot of these videos on my channel, because I think these principles, that's really what's important. This is really what sets you apart. It's about how you think about things, like the way you get to certain ideas, instead of just having like tactics or magic buttons, because like when you watch that video, these magic buttons may be on a completely different place, right? Or they don't exist anymore. So this is really, that's the difference between tactics and principles, right? So when it comes to the ad account, what I see working across 1.5 to 2 million spent a month is a very simple structure, which is either one campaign, right? It's just a CBO. And in some cases, we have like an ABO just to test certain things. Okay? But it's very, very simple. And that's what I mean with simplification. Yes, and there might be some guys in the comments that are, let's say, media buyers and just super skilled when it comes to the ad account. Yes, you can run more complicated setups, 100%. I've run them by myself, right? But I've come to realize that what I ultimately want to do is I want to maximize my business value. That is my goal number one. So I'd rather take away, like, I don't want this thing, and this is not fully true, but I don't want this thing to be at 100% and squeeze out every possibility of making the sale, another sale today. I don't need that. I don't need that. And because for this, I would have to stay in front of the ad manager all day long. And trust me, I've done it. I've done that. I've spent like 30K in single days in one single account for one single business, staying up all night, sleeping 2 hours, if at all, and just constantly like optimizing budgets on an hourly basis. Yes, you can do it, but it's crazy. It's crazy. Don't do it. Don't do it. I've done it, and it was super successful. But now looking back, it's not the right thing to do. It's not the right, allocation of your time, right? You can, it's way better, especially now, to get to, let's say, 70-80% of that, while almost spending no time in the ad manager. So here we're talking about, I don't know, like 10 hours, and here, literally, like I have consulting clients that literally spend 15 to 20 minutes per week optimizing their ads, and they're making $1 million a month, 800K a month, right? Some others are making like 200K a month, 150K a month, yeah, 500K. So, but that's the deal. Here we're optimizing for the overall thing, which is business value ultimately. And I'm going to add another point, the third point, which is going to blow your mind. But that's really what brings all of this home. So simplify, very, very important. Simplify things. And that's the beauty. Now, with this setup, especially like CBO, I mean, maybe you've heard similar setups. What I see here is basically you have your control, okay? One guy who's really good, who you can study is Charlie T. I learned this from him. You basically have your control ad set. This is where you have all your best ads. And then you just put all your creative tests in one campaign, right? Test 1, test 2, and so on and so forth. Whoa, very simplified, nothing crazy, but again, super effective. Overall, super effective, right? And this is what we want. So again, just to show you, it's not so complicated. You don't have to overcomplicate stuff. Another thing, when it comes to simplification, I always think like this, okay? For any e-commerce brand, any Facebook ad, case that I see, one channel, one creative, one offer, one funnel. Very, very simple, okay? Yes, this might be extreme, but at the same time, this simplicity and this constraint helps you to be super creative and super efficient when it comes to each one of these. Because at the end of the day, you only need to find one offer, you only need one creative, one channel, and one funnel to scale to $1 million a month. That's just the reality, right? There might be differences from niche to niche, product to product, but trust me, like with this setup here, and you only need one of each of those, that's all you need. Now, there is a process to getting there. That's the key. But what I want to say is you don't need like all these channels. You don't need to have Pinterest to make Facebook ads work and scale. You don't need to have like way more other channels. You don't need like 10 different creative types running at the same time, producing them all the time, right? So, because this is all stuff that overcomplicates everything. And that's why you're stuck. That's why you're stuck at a certain point and where you're like, okay, whatever, I'll just let this do the experts, right? But this is not what you should be doing. Simplify things, one channel, one push channel, which is Meta, Facebook, together with a pull channel like Google, right? That's the basic setup, Meta, Google. Enough to get to 8 figures, for sure. One creative, one offer, one funnel. I have videos on my channel where I break this down in more detail. Check them out on how to find the right offer, how to optimize your funnel, how to get the right creatives. But that's the overarching principle. Simplify as much as possible, right? Take out the complexity. Okay, then the third thing is really, and this is a big one, the third one is basically make sure that you're acquiring customer journeys not one-time transactions. And this is one, I don't know if you heard this one a lot on YouTube or wherever you're getting your content from, your information from. But this is something that I do with in every single case. And this just every time I tell this to founders, they're like, wow, okay, I never thought about my business like that. What do we do when we run Facebook ads? Most of the people, including most of the agencies, another point for that, is they're basically saying, okay, what's the return on ad spend? Okay, what's the ROAS? What's my ROAS today? That's what they're concerned about. And every time I hear that, I directly understand, okay, this person has no idea what she's doing. Because what we want to do with our business, and this is very important to explain, I hope I can get this good picture, is basically we can acquire a person today, okay? And we pay a certain price for that person. This is our CPA, cost per acquisition, okay? So this is person A, and this here is person B, okay? So now, when we look at, let's say, day one, basically, this is the day of the first purchase. Person A purchases, I don't know, something for $50, okay? $50. That's the first sale. But then, let's say this person purchases the same or a pretty similar value, $50. But now, and this is the point, this is only day one, okay? What if we look 3 months after, 6 months after, 12 months after? What does person A do and what does person B do? So person A, let's say, after 3 months has spent 52 on average. This is the customer lifetime value, right? So how much they spend across their lifetime. Here we say we have 55 potentially, and then it's just flat, okay? So after 12 months, this person has spent on average 56. Now, person B has a complete different path, okay? Here, we see this here, we see, I don't know, 73, and we have 80. Okay, now when I ask you, who would you spend more money for in the first place? Of course, person B. But when you look at the return on ad spend, the return on ad spend is the same, right? So, and that's the point, like, if you're constantly acquiring people that are not going to develop into customer journeys, where their customer lifetime value goes up, and one metric to measure that is the LTV CAC ratio, right? So you basically take your lifetime value divided by your customer acquisition costs. If this is not going up, you're basically like, you're just filling up your database with people that will never purchase again, basically. And what happens then is that every single month, you start from zero. Because what you get in is basically everything that you will forever get in, or almost. So next month you have to start again. Whereas in this case, the next month, in this case it's like $10, I make $10 revenue for each customer that I purchased the month before. In the month after, it's $13, right? And it just goes up, right? So this is a huge difference, because that means every single month you're just stacking new cohorts, how we call them, on top of each other. And this is what the brands are doing that are really crushing it, right? They're not thinking of acquiring somebody for one purchase, and they're looking at their day one return on ad spend. But they're looking at, okay, how much is a customer worth that I purchased today? And now one interesting tweak on that, it could be that it's actually more profitable for your business to have somebody pay a higher price in the beginning. Let's say a bundle, very, very good example. I've seen this in many, many cases. You have a bundle, so you increase the first order value. You also pay more for the customer, right? So instead of, I don't know, like $25, maybe I pay $35 for this customer. But because they're trying multiple different products in the beginning, they will come back at a higher likelihood, right? So then I get the AOV here up to, I don't know, 110, for example, right? So this is very important. Also, you will see differences when it comes to different types of products. Some products are just more sticky than other products. So if you have to decide, okay, I have a budget of, let's say, I don't know, 50K per month or 100K per month or 20K a month, on which product do I spend it? Because depending on which product you spend the money on, you will either have an automatic profit machine, or you will be stuck and constantly fighting against higher advertising costs. Okay? So just to summarize, and again, like if you want more in-depth stuff, I have many, many videos on the channel, and there are coming new videos every single week where I go more in depth there. But that's basically it. Number one, take full ownership of your acquisition, right? Don't be this like agency hopping founder that ultimately is not taking ownership, but just tries to push the ownership to the agency. This will cost you a lot of money and time. Second thing, simplify as much as possible. Stay away from all this overcomplicated stuff, all these overcomplicated strategies. If somebody wants to tell you, oh, you have to do all this crazy setup, if you hear that already, just run away, okay? Make it simple, because simple scales, always. I've seen this in so many cases now in my own brands, as well as other brands, simple scales, right? So for Facebook ads, keep it absolutely simple. Last thing, acquire customer journeys, right? Look at the right product to advertise, the product that yields you profits every single month after you acquire the customer, right? This is the real game changer, and this really makes it basically a flywheel where it works better and better every single month. And then you can decide to, invest some of these profits into more growth, okay? All right, more on that on more videos on the channel. If you want to learn more about, how to scale your e-commerce brand more profitably, bring things in-house, whatever you're at, if you're at $1 million a month and you want to get rid of expensive agencies, or you're on the road to $1 million a month, I can definitely help you. Just check out the links below and we can chat. I can show you what I do and how I've helped a bunch of brands to get there. All right, enjoy and thank you for listening. Until the next one, bye-bye.